He married 6 women. He executed 2. He abandoned 1 and sent her into exile. He divorced 1, saying to her, "You are too ugly." 1 died during childbirth, and only 1 he left untouched. But that's not the most terrifying part. The most terrifying part is that before each one was killed, they all saw the same thing: a man with a crown on his head, sitting on a golden throne, smiling. This man had once conquered their hearts with words of love. His name was Henry VIII, King of England, one of Europe's most powerful rulers. History knows him as the King with 6 wives. But I'm going to tell you 4 truths no one tells you. How each of these 6 women fell into the deadly rules of the palace. How love turned into hatred, and how one man's obsession changed England forever. Let's begin our story with the 4 truths you'll learn today. First, what each of his wives said and felt in their final moments on the execution grounds. Second, the war he waged against the Pope for just 1 woman, how he tore apart the entire church. Third, one of the 17 love letters he wrote to Anne Boleyn. People who don't visit the museum cannot read these lines. Fourth, the truth he finally understood, his will and confession, written before his death. 1491 Greenwich Palace, England. Queen Elizabeth gives birth to her 2nd son. She names him Henry. He grows up in the shadow of his older brother Arthur. Arthur is the heir, the future king. Henry grows up freely, thinking he will never ascend to the throne. He learns music, plays 6 instruments. He writes poetry. He's a master archer. He wrestles. He hunts. He lives his life as he wishes. 1502. When Henry is 11 years old, his brother Arthur suddenly falls ill and dies. Everything changes overnight. Henry is now the heir, the future king. 1509. His father, Henry VII, dies, and Henry ascends to the throne at 18. He is not only king, but described as one of the most handsome men in Europe. 6'2" tall, red-haired, blue-eyed, athletic build. No one can defeat him in wrestling. He fights in tournaments, wearing armor. Women fall for him. Poets write about him. He becomes engaged to his deceased brother's widow, Catherine of Aragon. Catherine is a Spanish princess, beautiful, educated, and devout. She had first been married to Henry's brother Arthur, but Arthur died at 16. Catherine stays in England. She waits 7 years, alone, not knowing what will become of her. Then Henry ascends to the throne, and they marry. The first years are perfect. Henry loves her very much. Catherine is intelligent, kind, and loyal, but they have no children. Catherine gets pregnant once, twice, 3 times, but each time the baby is either stillborn or lives only a few days. 1516. Finally, a healthy child is born, but it's a girl. They name her Mary. Henry is happy, but anxiety grows within him. He wants a son. He needs an heir. Otherwise, a war for the throne could begin. Years pass. Catherine is now aging and can no longer get pregnant. Henry is already 40, and one of the court ladies, Anne Boleyn, catches his attention. Anne Boleyn is one of Catherine's attendants. Though not very beautiful, she is intelligent and confident. Henry approaches her. He wants her, but Anne rejects the king. No woman had ever rejected the King of England, and this drove Henry crazy. He sends 17 handwritten love letters. In one of them he writes, "I dedicate my heart, my body, and my love to you. God knows how long I've waited for this moment. I will not touch you until you are mine by your own will." Anne replies, "I will not be your mistress. I will either be queen or nothing." Imagine you say no to one of the most powerful men in the world, and he wants you even more. Henry becomes obsessed. But there's a problem. He is already married to Catherine, and divorce is forbidden in the Catholic Church. Henry appeals to the Pope. He sends a letter to Rome requesting annulment of the marriage. He presents evidence. Catherine was first married to his brother, and the Bible says this is a sin. Pope Clement VII replies, no. Henry appeals again. Again, no. A third time. Again, no. Because Catherine is a Spanish princess, and Spain is the most powerful country in Europe at that time. Henry decides, if the Pope won't allow it, he will break from the Pope. 1533. Henry makes a historic decision. He separates England from the Roman Catholic Church. He declares himself head of the Church of England. He closes monasteries throughout the country. He expels monks and nuns. He seizes church property, millions of pounds worth of gold, silver, and land. Some monks protest, but Henry doesn't listen and has them executed. The Pope excommunicates Henry, meaning he declares him expelled from Christianity. Henry doesn't even care, because now he is the head of the church himself, and nothing can prevent him from separating from Catherine anymore. Catherine's end. In 1533, the marriage to Catherine is annulled. She loses the title of queen and is called Dowager Princess of Aragon. She is expelled from the palace and sent to a small house in the countryside. Her daughter Mary is taken from her. She's not even allowed to see her. Catherine writes letters to Henry. She begs, she pleads, but Henry doesn't even read them. In 1536, Catherine dies, alone, and without seeing her daughter. Some say from illness, some say from poisoning. When Henry hears this, he wears yellow and celebrates. Thank God, my great enemy is dead. And that very day he officially marries Anne Boleyn. Anne Boleyn, rise and tragedy. Anne becomes queen. Henry expects a son from her. In September 1533, Anne gives birth, but again, it's a girl. They name her Elizabeth. In the future, the great Queen Elizabeth I, but now no one even imagines this. Henry is disappointed, but doesn't lose hope. Next time, it will be a boy. But Anne gets pregnant 2 more times. Both times the babies are stillborn. Henry grows cold toward Anne. He looks at other women, has mistresses. Anne becomes sad, jealous. They argue. One day at the palace, Anne shouts at Henry. Henry doesn't forgive this. The death sentence. Henry decides Anne must go. But simply divorcing isn't enough, because that would make his war against the Pope meaningless. So he fabricates lies. Anne is accused of treason against the king, adultery with 5 men, even with her own brother, witchcraft. All lies. There's no evidence, but Henry is powerful. Who can oppose him? Anne is arrested and thrown into the Tower of London. 2 weeks pass. The 19th of May, 1536. Anne is brought to the execution grounds. Thousands of people watch her. She is neatly dressed. Her hair is up. She appears calm. Her last words are, "I wish to die as a good Christian. The king is a good, kind, and honorable man. I am here because I was not a good queen to him." Everyone knows she's lying. But if she doesn't say this, her daughter Elizabeth will be in danger. Anne kneels. She lays down her head. The executioner had been brought from France, the best at his job. With one sword stroke, her head falls. The crowd falls silent. Anne Boleyn's head is placed in a basket. Her body is buried without any ceremony. Henry, meanwhile, eats lunch at home that day as if nothing happened. The next day, he gets engaged. Jane Seymour. Her name was Jane Seymour. She had been Anne's attendant. She is quiet, obedient, not demanding like Anne. Henry likes this. They marry 11 days after Anne's execution. Jane gets pregnant. Henry feels that this time everything will be different. The 12th of October, 1537, Jane gives birth to a boy. They name him Edward. Finally, a male heir is born. Henry is overjoyed. Celebrations are held. Bells ring. But Jane develops an infection after a difficult birth. 12 days later, on the 24th of October, 1537, Jane dies. Henry is devastated. For the first time, he truly grieves. Jane was the woman who gave him a son, and he lost her. But now there's another fear. Edward is weak, frequently ill. If he dies, Henry will be without an heir again. Anne of Cleves, the smart wife. In 1540, Henry must marry again. His advisors recommend a princess from Germany, Anne of Cleves. The painter Hans Holbein is sent to paint her portrait. In the portrait, Anne looks beautiful. Henry agrees. Anne comes to England. Henry goes to meet her and is shocked. Anne doesn't look like the portrait, not at all. Henry becomes angry and says, "She's a Flanders mare," but it's too late. The contract is signed. They marry. After the wedding, Henry says, "I never touched her, nor could I." They remain married for 6 months. Then they divorce. Anne doesn't object. She is given money, a palace, and the title of the king's sister. She stays in England and lives comfortably. Of the 6 wives, only she was the smart woman. Catherine Howard, a dangerous mistake. In the summer of 1540, Henry is already 49 years old. He had become very fat. He has an ulcer on his leg, has difficulty moving, but he falls for a young woman again. Catherine Howard, 19 years old. Some say 17, some 16. She is Anne Boleyn's cousin. Beautiful, lively, young. Henry falls for her and marries her. The first months, Henry is like a young man again. He's cheerful, gives gifts, but Catherine is a simple girl. She didn't grow up at court, and she makes a mistake. A very big mistake. 1541. Information arrives. Catherine had been with other men before marriage, and after marriage, she met with a young man named Thomas Culpeper. There's evidence, letters, witnesses. Henry feels betrayed. This time, the betrayal is real. Catherine and Thomas are arrested. February 1542. Both are executed. Catherine is only 20 years old, maybe even younger. Her last words, "I was a bad queen, but I die as a good Christian." She is executed by beheading. 1543. Henry is now 52 years old, very ill, obese, has difficulty moving. The ulcer on his leg is festering, spreading a terrible smell. But he marries again, this time with Catherine Parr. She is 31 years old, already widowed twice. She is intelligent, educated, loves reading, and most importantly, she is cautious. She knows very well what happened to Anne Boleyn and Catherine Howard. She never argues with Henry. She appears obedient, agrees to everything, but secretly she has Protestant ideas. One day, someone tells Henry, Catherine reads Protestant books. Henry becomes angry and orders her arrest. Catherine hears this. She immediately goes to Henry. She kneels and says, "My lord, I am a woman, weak. I want to learn from your wisdom. If I have erred, show me the right path." Henry softens. "Good, good. See how well you speak." He cancels the arrest order. Catherine survives. January 1547. Henry dies at 55. Catherine is now free. Of the 6 wives, only she survives as the king's spouse. Henry's end. In his final years, Henry becomes unrecognizable. In his youth, he was a 6'2" tall, athletic, handsome young man. Now, 400 pounds, cannot move. 4 men carry him. The wound on his leg never heals. It's infected. A terrible smell spreads around. He is paranoid. He suspects everyone. He executes close friends, his advisors, even his relatives. His son Edward is only 9 years old. A weak child, frequently ill. Henry knows there will be problems after his death, and he writes a will. Edward will be the heir. If Edward dies, the throne will pass to Mary, his daughter, by Catherine of Aragon. If Mary dies, to Elizabeth, his daughter, by Anne Boleyn. In his will, he calls Jane Seymour his true wife. He wants his body buried next to hers. Of the 6 wives, he had loved only Jane, because only she gave him a son. The 28th of January, 1547, Henry dies. His last words, "Monks, monks." What did he mean? No one knows. Perhaps regret, perhaps fear. His body is buried at Windsor Castle, next to Jane Seymour. Who was Henry VIII? A monster? A romantic? Or both? He married 6 women. He killed 2. He abandoned 1, sent her into exile, and watched her die. He divorced 1. 1 died in childbirth, and only 1 survived because she was smart. But the real tragedy isn't here. The real tragedy is this. It was all for a baby boy. That boy Edward died at 15. All of Henry's marriages, all the deaths, all the wars, changed nothing. Who did the throne finally pass to? Women. First to Mary, then to Elizabeth. Elizabeth I. Elizabeth I became one of the greatest rulers in English history. She reigned for 45 years. She never married. She led England into a golden age. And every time someone said to her, "Why don't you marry?" she would reply, "I saw my mother's fate. I will never give any man that much power." Perhaps you've known someone too. Someone who controls under the name of obsessive love. Someone who says, "I love you," but really means "you are mine." Someone who says, "I'm doing everything for your benefit," but only thinks of themselves. Henry was that person. 6 wives, each found a different end. But one man determined the fate of all, and that man never understood. Power is not love. Control is not love. Obsession is not love. Henry died alone, obese, sick, and smelly. No one loved him. Everyone feared him. And after his death, England began to reverse everything he had done. Perhaps this is the real lesson. A throne gives you power, but it doesn't win you love. Love is chosen, and Henry never made the right choice. Thank you for watching. This was a story from Forgotten Thrones. On this channel, we tell the stories of forgotten thrones, hidden rulers, and erased destinies. Stories no one talks about. Stories no one looks at closely. Because every throne casts a shadow, and we shine a light on that shadow. If you enjoyed this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe. This is Forgotten Thrones, the untold stories of power, law, betrayal, and legacy. Thank you for watching.